autographed hardcover special edition copy of Land of Childhood's Fears will be sent to you for a $100 donation, or you can buy the book directly from the publisher. See links in the description. The U.S. Constitution is the overriding law of the land. Its language is simple and clear, and leaves no room for idle interpretation. The Second Amendment's clear language that, quote, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, end quote, is clear enough for me. The amendment states that, quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, end quote. Gun control idiots wants us to believe that the word militia refers to the U.S. military. The truth of the matter is that at the time this was written, there was no such thing as a national military. All there was at the time were loosely knit bands of patriots whose primary mission was to keep a foreign despot from ruling over a nation that declared their God-given rights and sovereignty. The only difference today is that the despotic government that we need to protect ourselves against is established on these shores. It has gotten out of hand because of the combination of treason by our elected officials and complicity of the mainstream media to cover for the traitors. The problem is further compounded by public ignorance and apathy, which is brought about by the apparency of freedom, immersion in the mindless bread and circuses of spectator sports, filling minds with useless statistics and diversions from things important to the survival of the Republic. This is no accident or coincidence. It is done by design. We have seen that elements in the government have been in bed with Nazis since World War II with Operation Paperclip, and the Bush family, among others, were secretly assisting Adolf Hitler. We know about the plot to seize the White House from author Jules Archer, who wrote a book with that title, and we must consider that the 1932 attempt, which failed due to General Smedley Butler, who exposed it, succeeded with the November 22, 1963 assassination of President John F. Kennedy. And we see by the resistance of the deep state leftist scumbags to the will of the people, by their pathetic attempts to undermine and overthrow a sitting president, Donald Trump, that they are embedded covert traitors who need to be arrested, tried, and executed for the worst acts of treason committed since the Republic was established. The reluctance of the FBI to arrest these criminals is no accident either. We have exposed Comey and Strzok, and we have 600,000 emails that we know of from the frazzled rat. At 2 minutes per email, doing the math, 600,000 emails times 2 minutes equals 1,200,000 minutes. Divided by 60 minutes in an hour equals 20,000 hours. Divided by 12 hours in a day is 1,666 days with 4 hours overtime per day. Divided by 365 days per year is 4.56 years, which begs the question, what the fuck do these people do except send each other emails that have nothing to do with the people's business? The least we should demand is that the salaries of these thieves be refunded to the U.S. Treasury, and any wealth that politicians have amassed other than their salaries and lawful businesses be seized and returned to the taxpayers. And what we should expect from the world's most prolific legal minds and the nation's premier law enforcement agency is a method and a means to arrest and to prosecute the planet's most vile and evil criminals who have admitted to their many crimes via their own communications. We see over 14,000 sealed federal indictments on the court dockets in all 50 states. The number rises with every day that passes. We know that something horrendous is about to happen, and we are anxiously awaiting for the sword of Damocles to fall. And if the dangling sword, hanging by a single hair, doesn't fall before the summer, anyone with their eyes open knows that millions of armed patriots stand ready to sever that hair. Better it would be for the traitors and child traffickers to take their chances with military tribunals than to fall into the hands of pissed-off patriots. And do you not think that the deep state has everything to do with the search engine results when you Google Dick Act. That Snopes.com, the most infamous fake news website on the internet, is at the top of the search engine results. I won't bore you with the details of this bullshit article written by Snopes. Now let's explore the empirical truth. The Dick Act of 1902 can't be repealed. Gun control is forbidden. Protection against tyrannical government. The Dick Act of 1902, also known as the Efficiency of Militia Bill, House Resolution 11654 of June 28, 1902, invalidates all so-called gun control laws. It also divides the militia into three distinctly and separate entities. The three classes H.R. 11654 provides for are the organized militia, henceforth known as the National Guard of the State, Territory and District of Columbia, the unorganized militia, and the regular army. The militia encompasses every able-bodied male between the ages of 18 and 45. All members of the unorganized militia have the absolute personal right and Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms of any type, and as many as they can afford to buy. The Dick Act of 1902 cannot be repealed. To do so would violate bills of attainder and ex post facto laws, which would be yet another gross violation of the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The President of the United States has zero authority without violating the Constitution to call the National Guard to serve outside their state borders. The National Guard militia can only be required by the national government for limited purposes specified in the Constitution: to uphold the laws of the Union, to suppress insurrection and repel invasion. These are the only purposes for which the general government can call upon the National Guard. Attorney General Wickensham advised President Taft, quote, "The organized militia, the National Guard, cannot be employed for offensive warfare outside the limits of the United States," end quote. The Honorable William Gordon, in a speech to the House on Thursday, October 4th, 1917, proved that the action of President Wilson in ordering the organized militia, the National Guard, to fight a war in Europe was so blatantly unconstitutional that he felt Wilson ought to have been impeached. During the war with England, an attempt was made by Congress to pass a bill authorizing the President to draft 100,000 men between the ages of 18 and 45 to invade enemy territory, Canada. The bill was defeated in the House by Daniel Webster on the precise point that Congress had no such power over the militia as to authorize it to empower the President to draft them into the regular army and send them out of the country. The fact is that the President has no constitutional right, under any circumstances, to draft men from the militia to fight outside the borders of the USA, and not even beyond the borders of their respective states. Today, we have a constitutional law which still stands in waiting for the legislators to obey the Constitution, which they swore an oath to uphold. Charles Hughes of the American Bar Association made a speech which is contained in the Appendix Congressional Record, House September 10th, 1917, pages 6836 to 6840, which states, quote, "The militia within the meaning of these provisions of Constitution is distinct from the Army of the United States," end quote. In these pages, we also find a statement made by Daniel Webster, quote, "that the great principle of the Constitution on that subject is that the militia is the militia of the states and of the general government, and thus being the militia of the states, there is no part of the Constitution worded with greater care and with more scrupulous jealousy than that which grants and limits the power of Congress over it," end quote. This limitation upon the power to raise and support armies clearly establishes the intent and purpose of the framers of the Constitution to limit the power to raise and maintain a standing army to voluntary enlistment, because if the unlimited power to draft and conscript was intended to be conferred, it would have been a useless and a puerile thing to do to limit the use of money for that purpose. Conscripted armies can be paid, but they are not required to be, and if it had been intended to confer the extraordinary power to draft the bodies of citizens and send them out of the country in direct conflict with the limitation upon the use of the militia imposed by the same section and article, certainly some restriction or limitation would have been imposed to restrain the unlimited use of such power. The Honorable William Gordon, Congressional Record, House page 640, 1917.
Hello, this is Dave from Net4 Truth USA. It is the early morning hours of February 22nd, 2018. Thank you for watching this issue of fe'fe with Dave, which was number 263. And hopefully you learned a lot about the illegal gun laws in this country. And I guess you've learned not to trust Snopes as far as you could spit up wind in a Saigon monsoon. Thank you for listening. It took me 6 hours to put this video together. Please give it a thumbs up and share it. Thank you very much for watching.
Autographed hardcover special edition copy of Land of Childhood's Fears will be sent to you for a $100 donation. You can get the book from Amazon or buy it directly from the publisher at lulu.com. Links are in the description section.